So my daughter comes running down the stairs saying, "Mommy, in 2 years, I'll be going to college." So I already have a practice that is starting to grow, and I figure it would demand more administrative work, which means less time with her. So it was a time of reckoning, and I decided to settle for a structured schedule, not knowing whether I was going to like it or not, but spending that time with my daughter was precious to me. So I went to work for the American University, the Office of the University Architect, and then from there came to the Smithsonian, so I've been here for 15 years. I was fortunate to be given the opportunity to work on this building, but basically what led to me to it was not the experience in this type of buildings, but basically my managerial skills and my ability to communicate with people. So one of the first things that I did was I started a sustainability committee that was known, and with that group we issued the first Smithsonian directive on sustainability. Now that affects all of our museums, 19 museums, all of our research facilities nationwide and internationally, and the National Zoo. So I was proving myself as a good manager, and that's what probably gave me the opportunity to work on this building, because I had never done a building this large.
This is an amazing building too.
It's wonderful.
We'll give you some screenshots a little later. So I want to kind of go back to the sustainability committee, but also kind of talking about civic engagement. You've had some experience with that. Do you want to?
Yes, and actually I learned a lot from it. It's like all of these experiences are volunteer, but you really learn a lot. I live in Capitol Hill, and we had a huge, big, ugly public housing project. It was called the Ellen Wilson Housing Project, which was a disgrace to be a few blocks from the Capitol. And there was a group of us, 12 of us, that got together and we created a community organization to do something with it. This was a period of time where the city was in distress, so we even had to have somebody, because the city couldn't make decisions for us. It was in receivership. And so we had to even write the scope of work. But in any event, we did, and we were able to create a community of tiered incomes, because it was public housing. But the thing is, public housing, most of the people that live in public housing are people that make between 0 and 25%. Public housing actually is for people who make up to 80%. But because it's so bad, people don't want to stay there, so they leave. So what we did was create a tier system by incomes, so you have a real mix of people of all incomes, and it's a success. It's been on for 20 years now, and we're having, I'm still under trust on the board of trustees, and we're having now growing pains. I mean, we've done so well, we need to recapture and see what it is we're going to do with it next.
Very nice. You also, so a lot of our students are, thinking about their path in architecture, and licensure is a big thing. And so you were on the DC licensing, Board of Licensing. Do you want to talk about some of the experiences you had there and your experience with NCARB?
Yes, I was the chair of the DC Board of Architecture and Interior Design. And a lot of my role there was trying to, first of all, we made sure that architects would get continuing education, because the city still had not required that. That gives mobility to the architects. And it was more one of monitoring the practice of architecture more than the licensing. But because I'm a representative, or I was a representative of the district with NCARB, then yes, we were involved in the licensing issues. I think that is great. What we're doing now is that we are allowing students to start the process of registration while they're in school. And it's not good for everybody, but it's like everybody doesn't have to follow the same path. There are people that come to the School of Architecture with a lot of experience. So why should they have to wait before they start taking the exam? There are others like me that I would have never passed it being a student, because I had no experience at all when I started. But, that is, I'm glad that NCARB has gone that way.
Do you have any advice for students who are just starting the licensure process?
Stay with it.
Stay with it.
See, when I took my exams, the exam was given only twice. One in the fall, in December, and one in May. So if you fail any part, you have to wait a whole year to retake the same part. Right now, you have the exam, so you can take them whenever you want to. what that does is that people say, oh, I can take them anytime, and then procrastinate. So my advice would be just focus on one part, do it, pass it, focus on another one, do it, pass it, and move on. And there are obstacles, I'm not going to say everything is rosy, there are obstacles, but you walk through obstacles, you walk around them, you jump around them, or you take another path, but you can't let those things stop you.
So tell me a little bit more about work-life balance. You took a step back from your firm to come work for the Smithsonian so you could spend more time with your daughter. But now that she's, I'm assuming, in school.
She's married with children.
Married with children. How do you, how is your work-life balance now? And what are some of the things that you do?
Most of my family is not in the city, so I do spend a lot of time traveling back and forth to the West Coast to see my daughter and my grandchildren. I do that like every 3 months. I take a very long weekend and spend time with them. At Christmas time, I spend a week with them. In the summer, or now in the spring, they'll be coming here next week. I'm very anxious to show them what spring is like, because you don't see that in California. But I also do a lot of things on a day-to-day basis. I spend a lot of time with my friends, as I said. I go a lot to theater. I have a subscription with Arena Stage. I go to the Kennedy Center. I read a lot. I ski a lot, and my secret passion is that I dance tango.
Very nice.
And I do that a couple of nights a week.
Very nice. So work-life balance is key to really.
It is important because even if I have a bad day in the office, I go dancing at night, and the next day I'm a new person. And I sleep better even if I sleep shorter because I've been out, because it's like all the stress goes out, and just the next day I'm new.
So I want to turn and focus on mentors. Mentors are a huge part of the profession, and they can actually be very, very beneficial for someone who really has questions about their career. They can be an advocate for you. What has your experience been like with mentors? Has there been one that kind of stood out to you, and what did that experience look like?
Well, when I was going to school, I worked with Knox Associates. He was the president of the President's Committee on Accessibility. There was still no ADA. And I learned from him a lot. He really taught us, because he was a very small firm, and he was very much involved in trying to get these accessibility standards for ANSI. He was very much in training us, in training a group of people that would learn how to present themselves, that would learn how to teach, and how to put out your ideas. And I think that was crucial. Then you learn out of everyone. Then when I worked for Deborah and Cornell, the situation was different. That's where I honed my management skills. It was a small firm, so you had to manage the project, not only work on the design. So I learned a lot from them. Marshall was wonderful for me. Then later on, wherever I go, I always find somebody. Even getting this project was because of my mentor. There was a woman who was my boss, and as I said, or I may have said, I had no experience in creating major buildings, but she had trust in me, and she fought for me so that I would get this project. So, if you have a good relationship with somebody that you have worked in the past, I think you should keep it and foster it. It was Marshall, through all these years, that really sponsored me to become a fellow of the American Institute of Architects. But it's because we had created all that relationship in the back.
So in closing, I just want to talk about what is one piece of advice you would give to emerging professionals who are really starting on their career path?
Don't wait for the door to be opened for you. Just look at the gap and go straight in. And forget about obstacles. They're always going to be there, but just be a gas and move around them.
And talking about voids, and if you see something.
Exactly. If there is a gap, there is a void, there is something that needs to be done and you can do, don't wait for a decision or for somebody to appoint you to do that, but just come in and do it yourself and prove yourself that way as well.
Like you did with the sustainability.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's what we did here. Yes. Yeah, we put together a group of people. When I came in, I had done some sustainability work in my private practice, but when I came to the Smithsonian, one of my first questions was, what are we doing about sustainability? And I was told, well, we don't have anything officially, but there are different groups that are trying to do different things. So again, I brought this group of people together, and I said, why, if you're trying to do sustainability, you have not been successful in a greater scale? And they said, well, it's because, we have limited funds from Congress, so sustainability is not a directive. So we can't assign money to that if we need it for something else. So I said, okay, I guess our first job is to create a sustainability directive that becomes official and reflects a real commitment from the Smithsonian, and we did. So now today we have, well, we started with 2 sustainable professionals. We had 44 in the first 3 years. We have all our buildings. We have 20 certified buildings and projects. So I'm very proud of that work, but it's again because there was a gap and I thought it needed to be done, so I didn't ask for permission. I just went ahead and did it.
So if there's a gap and you have a passion for it,
go for it.
Go for it. Well, thank you very much, Brenda. This is wonderful, and we'll see you next time.